How can you be truly present in your relationship in a way that helps you find aliveness and joy no matter what's going on in the moment? And how can you make sure you're being fully present and yourself instead of trying to be what someone else wants you to be in an effort to connect or to please them? That's what we're going to cover in this week's episode. But first, I want to take a moment to thank the lovely listeners who have recently contributed to the podcast over this past week. Anne, Linda, and Ben. Thank you all so much for your generous contributions to ensure that we can keep the lights on here at Relationship Alive headquarters. And if you are finding the podcast to be helpful and would like to donate, just visit neilsatin.com/support or text the word support to the number 33444 and follow the instructions to choose something that feels right for you. Also, if you haven't downloaded it yet, be sure to pick up my free guide to my top 3 relationship communication secrets. When it comes to staying present and communicating effectively, these 3 tips will help you stay connected no matter how challenging the topic you're discussing with your partner. And as I mentioned, the guide is free. To download your copy, just visit neilsatin.com/relate or text the word relate to the number 33444 and follow the instructions to download the guide. Finally, before we dive into today's episode, if you're looking for support in your relationship and you happen to be on Facebook, come join the Relationship Alive community, where there are more than 2,400 listeners gathered to create a safe space for conversation about relationship. And you can also follow the Relationship Alive official account on Instagram, where we're just getting started, but it would be great to see you there. I think that's it for now, so let's get on with the show. Hello and welcome to another episode of Relationship Alive. This is your host, Neil Satin. In today's episode, I want you to learn some simple yet unexpected ways to not only learn how to be present, but also to find the well-being that's within you at any given moment. And also to learn how to bring this sense into how you interact with other people, especially your partner. Today's guest is Julie Henderson, the creator of Zapchen Somatics and the author of the books The Lover Within and Embodying Well-Being, among other books that she's written. Her work is profound and powerful in its simplicity, and I've been really looking forward to sharing this conversation with you. It actually took a little while to even locate Julie, and our official conversation happened after a few months of chatting and going back and forth to figure out how we wanted to approach the material. This is the challenge with many of my guests, right? It's how do you sum up a lifetime of work in an hour-long conversation? Well, short version is you can't, but I think what we have for you today is special and a rare glimpse into the practices of a teacher who, as you hear, or as you will hear today, has influenced thousands of people through her work. If you are interested in downloading a transcript, you can visit neilsatin.com/Julie, Julie, or simply text the word passion to the number 33444 and follow the instructions. And thank you so much, Julie Henderson, for being here with us today on Relationship Alive. Where shall we start?
Most people don't know how to be present. So they don't know how to be present in relationship to someone else. So they make something up. They make some kind of a guess, and then they do that and see if it has the effect that they want. Most people are not encouraged to learn how to do that. That's central to everything. So, I would say, notice that you are. That might be a surprise to a lot of people, in fact, to just to do that. But it's a huge step for most people to notice that they are, and to experience how they are when they are noticing that they are. This kind of strange way of talking about things, but it's almost everybody is born knowing how to be, but they are often taught from an early age not to be, because it bothers their parents.
Yeah, so
when we are being, frequently we are loud, if we're kids.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were going to say?
Well, that was the exact thing. I was going to hopefully get you to point out what are these ways of being that come naturally or innately that we would be conditioned not to do.
Uh-huh. Well, it varies from person to person, don't you see? It almost always involves, when we're young, it almost always involves spontaneous movement, spontaneous noise, really, because often we are being noisy before we know how to talk. And so when we are both noisy and active, dancing around or dancing around often. Young people like to experience being by moving. And lots of times parents don't like that because parents are tired. Parents don't know how to be themselves anymore because they have to go to work and stuff like that. So they encourage their children not to be loud, not to be moving, not to be having a good time being. That's the main difficulty, I would say. We are taught not to be present, certainly. What is it? I'm trying to think how I would say. What do we mean, present? Noticing in various ways what it feels like to be present, what it feels like to notice that we actually are. I don't know, maybe that all sounds a little bit, who cares, but I find it absolutely necessary. And it's not so hard, except that when we are grown-ups, we have often spent a lot of time learning not to be present, not to notice that we are really this being of presence. And so...
Yeah, there are some things that are clicking into place for me. For instance, when we're young, let's say before we're even verbal, we have a very limited ways of communicating with our parents. And if I think about my experience of being a parent, I was recognizing a lot of what seems like discomfort and unease in my children, and trying to address it in a way that hopefully brings peace and happiness to them. But what I'm hearing, or what's clicking into place, is that through that process, there's inadvertently, really, what happens is the ways that our organism innately wants to communicate and express and just kind of deal with being a body being existing in this realm, that we might become either alienated from those ways, or, like you were just saying, told that we can't do those things, we can't express, can't make noise, can't be unruly, can't jump around. I mean, this is common, I think, for a lot of us to go through that experience.
Very common. Very common.
And so then we find ourselves as adults trying to make sense of the world and trying to make sense of our relationships. But at that point, there's a communication system, the communication that emerges from within us. And in many ways, we're alienated from that. We're alienated from the messaging that comes from within, that tells us about how we are.
Yep, we have learned to ignore what's actually true and to come up with something that's acceptable, or we have been taught is acceptable. And then we try to bring that into relationship with people that we find attractive.
Right. No wonder it gets confusing.
No wonder it gets very cranky. We try so hard to get it right so that that person will love us. And by and large, it really doesn't work.
Right. Or it works for a little while, and then it starts to get confused, or there's all this tension and bumps that happen.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think eventually there's a resentment that arises in us spontaneously because we are not being who we are. And we may not even recognize that is what is going on, but that we are trying to be what somebody else wants us to be, and that's uncomfortable.
Right, and I'm getting the sense that when you talk about being who we are, in some respects, you're not talking about being who we are as an expression of like your preferences or your likes and dislikes, or it's something on a deeper level than that.
Oh yes. One of the things that I have found people take to, given the invitation and the possibility of trying it out, is to I say, when you say I, where is that voice coming from in you as a body? Is it coming out of your head? Is it coming out of your chest? Is it coming out of your belly? And I just invite people to notice where that I that they are talking about is located. And very often, especially with Westerners, it's in their head. So then I would say, okay, well, if you were to move that voice into your heart, would you say the same thing that you just said when you were being in your head, in your brain? And often they're just really startled that the rest of them, starting with the heart in this particular instance, is not feeling or responding to being the same as we have been taught to do by being located in our head, especially if we went to school a lot.
Right, there's a lot of head instruction when you're in school.
Yep. I remember for myself when I first went to, I was at Cal as a freshman. The University of California, Berkeley, and I was sitting in a classroom, and suddenly I was noticing that it was not my head that was engaged here. It was my whole body, ideally speaking. But I didn't get that far that suddenly. But just noticing that I could be more of myself, so to speak, and that was very attractive.
And was there something particular about that class that created that experience for you, or?
I think it was an English class, but I don't remember, because what stayed with me was that recognition, and whatever we were talking about in the class was not it. Was not the relevant recognition.
Yeah. So first, let me just say that I find your work, at least to the extent that I've been exposed to it so far, to be both fascinating and comforting. And it's just, for me, like such a curious blend of all these different practices and techniques and ways of looking at experience, that even in just my like simple introduction to your work, that they've made an impact. And in particular, I'm thinking...
May I say that's very nice to hear.
Yeah, of course. And in particular, I'm thinking right now about one of the first conversations that we had. And just to give you listening a little background, my introduction to Julie was through her book, The Lover Within, which had been given to me by a friend, and reached out in a number of different ways to try and connect with you, Julie. And then when we finally connected and started talking about your work, you were like, oh, there's been so much since then, and let me send you a few things. And you sent me, among other books, which we'll get to in a little while, you sent the Hum book. And that was where I started, actually, was by reading your book about humming. And in the time since then, I've used humming as a way of bringing myself back to presence a lot, actually. I'm curious if you can...
Works a treat.
Yeah, can you talk a little bit about the practice of humming, and also, what is it about humming that's so restorative in your opinion?
Well, there are 75 different ways of answering that. One of the ways would be to say, when we hum, we are touching our whole body. If we are relaxed enough to let the hum go through the whole body, which most people aren't to begin with, but eventually, when we are touching our whole body from the inside. And what drives me wild with joy, just to think about it and to talk about it, is that we are touching the cellular presence of being a body, and offering it nourishment because of the oxygen that goes with the hum, and the encouragement to be a body that goes with that kind of inner contact with ourselves. And it's very relaxing, for one thing. I'm sure you've noticed that.
Oh, yeah.
But it is, yeah.
And when you talk about how you're actually touching the cellular structures within you. I just want to give the people listening a sense of what you're talking about. As a visual, you describe someone, I think, bowing a violin and in the presence of a pane of glass with a bunch of sand sprinkled on the glass. And that by making the sound, everything on the glass dances. And then when the sound stops, it comes to rest in a coherent pattern that comes from the vibration. And so through humming, we get to send this coherent pattern through our entire body and experience that the results of that resonance. How long should someone hum for to experience that, do you think?
How long do they want to hum?
I love it. And is there a quality of the hum that so when people are like, well, I've hummed before, I don't think I've experienced what they're talking about. How do you get at that particular kind of humming that has such a deep effect?
I would say be the hum. Mostly, if somebody says, well, I hummed and nothing happened, something like that, it's because they weren't there. They weren't there as the hum, for the hum, following the hum. So, of course, it didn't have the same effect. I think a lot of times it just doesn't occur to somebody to be present in the hum and as the hum. And you can go, well, I tell you, the first time I've had the good sense to do this that I'm about to say, it was just stunning to me that I could, for example, I could hum in my chest, and then the hum, if I relaxed a little bit and changed the location of my attention. If I would take my attention into my belly then, for example, then the hum would automatically go there. And down my legs and into my feet and toes and so forth. Wherever I place my attention, that is where the hum will go. And feel good. Feel good. So one of the things that happens is that if you are humming into your chest, for example, where in your chest? If you have learned about the mediastinum by studying this or that, then if you hum into the mediastinum, the tissues there, which we often, when for example we feel unloved, if we notice that the tissues in the mediastinum, if they are contracted, automatically we will be feeling unloved, because that is a way we have of protecting ourselves from being alone or feeling like everything is too hard, or whatever our practices of that sort are. If we locate the mediastinum, that wonderful, wonderful set of tissues that surround and support the heart, and a lot of the feelings that we have about how we are arise in the cells that surround, that fill the mediastinum and surround and support the heart. That's a wonderful thing to do. Really wonderful.
Yeah, I'm reminded of how at the very beginning of your book, Embodying Well-Being, there's a foreword from Paul Ekman, and some of you listening may know of Paul Ekman because he studied micro expressions in the face and your ability to tell what someone is really feeling or thinking by studying their micro expressions. And then he further went on to talk about how if you could reproduce those expressions in the face, you could create emotions. And then I'm just to give everyone the background here, because I found this so fascinating. Julie ended up being in contact with him, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, Julie, but he studied you in his lab and was amazed that not only were you able to create different emotional states seemingly at will, but also you weren't bound by having to change your facial expression or the way you were breathing. There was something you were doing that was allowing you to experience joy and rage and sadness and all of these things just through how you were. Well, you tell me, because I'm so fascinated and curious to know what were you doing?
Because my body knows how to do that.
Yes, great.
As I am a body, I already know how to do that. And if you look at that very first part of embodying well-being, where the basic exercises are, those are things that kids do spontaneously. And if they are not suppressed from doing them, they will grow up with that capacity inherent in themselves as being a body. And they will be able to do what I can do.
Julie, we're going to take just a moment to talk about this week's sponsors. And two of them have a special offer for you as a Relationship Alive listener. Our first sponsor is Songfinch. When Chloe and I celebrated our first anniversary back in July, I wanted to do something really special for her. At about that time, I heard about this company called Songfinch that creates custom songs made to order for special occasions in your life. So I gave them a try to see if they could create a song that felt like it was special enough to be my gift to Chloe for our wedding anniversary. Since Songfinch is one of today's sponsors, then you know that it was an experiment that went well. The way it works is that you tell them what the occasion is, what emotions you'd like your song to evoke, what genre of music you'd like, and then you tell them a little bit about your story. And their songs aim to bring your story to life. Here's an example. I told them about how Chloe and I met in a dance class, and how at one point, when we had broken up, we had this dance together in front of everyone else in the class. Afterwards, several of our friends were like, "What are you doing breaking up? You guys are obviously so good together." And this is just one example of something that I told Songfinch. And the song that they came back with was amazing.
Dance we did, that old illusion. Two different worlds couldn't mix. To our friends it was obvious. I just wanna watch you dance across the room. I just wanna hold your hand through the thick of it. I just wanna watch you dance across the room. I just wanna hold your hand through the
I'll play you the rest of the song at the end of the episode so you can hear the whole thing. All I can say is I'm really impressed. Their songwriter did an amazing job weaving together so many important details into something that made us smile, laugh, and cry together on Anniversary Day. And Chloe has a very refined taste in music, so it was so cool to see her light up like that. They also make it easy for you to create a slideshow to go with your song, which I put some time into as well. All this is to say that I think that a Songfinch song would be a really inspired gift, perhaps this holiday season, to someone special in your life. So check them out at songfinch.com so you can hear what they do. They offer songs starting at $99, and if you choose to do a song from scratch, as a Relationship Alive listener, they are giving you $20 off if you use the coupon code ALIVE20. Visit songfinch.com and use the coupon code ALIVE20 for $20 off your personalized song from scratch. And thank you, Songfinch, for sponsoring this week's episode of Relationship Alive. Our second sponsor is great at doing what they do, and they're also offering something special just for you if you wear contact lenses, like I do. Their name is simplecontacts.com, and they are offering $20 off your first order with them if you visit simplecontacts.com/alive20 or use the coupon code ALIVE20 when you check out. Now, simplecontacts.com has made it really easy to not only get your supply of contact lenses, they carry all major brands, but also to get your prescription renewed if you need to do that. They've created a vision test that you can take in the comfort of your own home in less than 5 minutes, and it only costs $20 compared to whatever a visit to the eye doctor would cost you. Now, it's not meant to replace a full eye health exam, but it is a way to get a doctor-approved prescription renewal without having to leave the comfort of your own home. Standard shipping is free, and on top of that, they have stellar customer service. As an example, I actually have a somewhat rare condition that keeps me from being able to turn my eyes. It's called Duane's retraction syndrome, if you're curious and want to look it up. And part of the quick and easy vision test that they have requires that you turn your eyes left and right. Simple enough, right? But I can't do it. In any case, I took the test the best that I could, placed my order, and then waited to see what would happen. If they would notice, or what. Sure enough, I got a text right away from their customer support people, who were super personable, and they told me that I needed to retake the turning your eyes portion of the test. I explained my situation to them, and then after a quick consultation with their doctors, they told me I was all set, and it was as easy as that. So I use contacts when I dance or go to the beach, and I'm really excited to have a reliable source when my supply is running low. So the whole process with simplecontacts.com for me was really easy, fast, and I'm delighted to be able to offer you $20 off your first order to try them out. All you have to do is visit simplecontacts.com/alive20 or use the coupon code ALIVE20 at checkout to get your discount. And thank you, Simple Contacts, for also helping make Relationship Alive possible. This week's third and final sponsor is James Avery Artisan Jewelry. Gifts from James Avery help you tell your story, one that you and your loved one will remember for years to come. You'll get to see your partner smile when they open the James Avery coral box, and you'll be able to share that memory every time they wear that special something that you got for them. James Avery also sources their gemstones responsibly, something that's especially important to me and Chloe as we make choices about jewelry. In a conversation about embodying well-being, it only makes sense to talk about smiles. Some smiles are wide and full of warmth. Some smiles reach all the way up to the eyes, and some are so bright that they light up the entire room. And every smile, of course, tells a story about the gift, about you, and about the one that you love. This holiday season, you have some smiles to look forward to. You can find James Avery artisan jewelry in their shops, in many Dillard's stores, and online at jamesavery.com. And thank you so much, James Avery, for supporting smiles and relationships by sponsoring this episode of Relationship Alive. And now, let us get back to our conversation with Julie Henderson. So let's just talk for a moment about what it means to embody well-being, because we've brought up presence, we've talked about embodying, and I'd like to converge that into like, what the heck are we actually talking about? Embodied presence. Mm-hmm. What does that mean?
You want to talk about embodied presence or embodied well-being? Or they are not quite the same. They go together, but it will be helpful if we choose one to begin with.
Where's a good place to start?
Well, whichever one, for whoever is wanting to try it out, whichever one is easy for you. For example, for me, it was easy because both of my parents were actors, and they were, they would be preparing for roles, and they would be feeling various feelings and stuff. So it was not an uncommon experience for me, and I could try things out. I was not suppressed from doing that. Let's see. It all seems so straightforward to me at the moment. Either way, well-being or presence doesn't matter. You start by bringing your attention into your body as sensation, and let yourself take in the qualities of those sensations, and that will tell you what you are at that time inclined to feel. So if then you want to feel well-being, which is a very nice thing to do, it's sort of like tweaking. What do you want to invite yourself as a body to do so that well-being arises? That would be the question from a grown-up point of view. And if you have access to what it has been like for you to be a child, it's very easy if you have permission from your experience to to laugh, and as I just to think of something that attracts you, that you like, that you are glad that you know about, and let your body sense into those sensations, and just enjoy them. Just enjoy them.
When I think about being in relationship and how much energy goes into trying to solve problems, then what occurs to me is that the first thing that has to happen in order for you to be trying to solve a problem is you have to imagine that there is a problem. And that sense of there being a problem is probably coming from some sense of discomfort within you. And one of the lovely other insights that your book Embodying Well-Being starts with is this idea that you don't have to wait to fix the problem, if there even is a problem, to feel good, to embody well-being. And I'm imagining because I haven't fully experienced this yet, honestly, but I'm imagining what it could be like for people in relationship to be so aware that they say, okay, there's a problem right now. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to hum, and then maybe I'm going to laugh and yawn or jiggle my body. And I'm just kind of cherry picking a few of the techniques that you mentioned at the beginning of embodying well-being. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to see what that does to my state of being and the way that I feel before we even try to solve anything.
Yep.
And it's such a profound degree of well, it's funny. I was about to say control, but that word control feels so like not the right word.
Try choice.
Yeah, there, perfect.
Try choice.
Yeah, so the ability to choose what our experience is in the moment.
Mm-hmm. And to play around with, suppose you feel like there's something wrong, and you don't know what it is exactly. Suppose then you choose to do some or one or two or three or four of these things that help us to move towards well-being before you worry about it, and see if it's still there.
Right. And what if it is? What if it is still there?
Well, then you may also have more clarity about what it is that you would like to have different.
Right, because so often we're just reacting from a place of I'm uncomfortable, I want to feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And the illusion in those moments with a partner especially is that the way to feel better is for you to change, the other person to change.
Yep. Be different for me, darling.
Right, exactly. Do you have any suggestions for a practice that might be a good invitation for two people to do together? Maybe even in a moment of tension between them. But maybe even before a moment of tension, it could be they practice it with, when there's less at stake or something like that.
Well, before they decide that they're going to feel bad because they don't like what's happening, that would be nice. There are horse lips is perfect. And I guess probably most people have long gone past practicing horse lips.
Horse lips?
But horse lips. You can do it that way, or you can do it with more relaxed lips. So it's like... It won't do it for me at the moment. I'm getting it wrong. Yeah. There is a way, if your lips are really, really relaxed, that they vibrate and flap instead of making the buzzy sound. And that's a lot of fun.
Yeah, kind of like this.
Yep, like that's horse lips. Horse lips because horses do that. God bless them. When they are excited or interested or just playful, they will do that.
Yeah, and I'm noticing right now that it feels silly to have done that. And here we are, we're in an interview and, thousands of people are listening to us. And
oh my God.
I know, exactly.
I didn't do it.
And
right.
And it feels like silly and good?
Well, it is the beginning of a willingness to move towards well-being, even if we were taught not to be silly.
Right. That is so funny. Just hearing you say that, it makes me think of those moments when we are abdicating our choice to feel good. And in particular, those like tense moments could be with our partner, could be sitting in traffic, whatever it is. But those moments when we choose to stew or choose to be angry or choose to be fearful. And I can, I'm saying this right now, and I can even hear myself in a different frame of mind being like, I'm not choosing this. It's like, it's overtaking me. But yet if in that moment, if someone said, oh, well, just like do horse lips, a favorite one of my wife, Chloe, and I is to speak in gibberish. But it's like, it can take a serious amount of effort to actually make yourself do that in a tense and triggered moment, because there's so much that wants to resist.
Well, I'll tell you what. It is really something worth trying to say, I am feeling like I want to be pissed off about something, and I'm going to try feeling good first. Then I can be as pissed off as I want to be, if I still want to be. Because if I'm allowing myself to feel well and happy first, then the whole organismic context, the attitude that is held in the cells, and all of the ways that we are put together as a body, when we are feeling good as a body, then it's unlikely that we will want to feel pissed off. We may have an objection still, but we don't have to go into a contracted state of being. I mean, we can. I mean, we always have that choice. It's just that we don't. It's not necessary that we go in that direction.
Right, and even then, you get to bring the element of choice to how you handle your objection versus just
absolutely
losing choice because you're in a contracted state.
Yep.
So I can already imagine the next, little bit of conflict that comes up between me and Chloe. I'm going to be like, just excuse me for a moment, and go into the next room and do some horse lips and laugh and hum, and then come back and be like, all right, let's try this again. Let's have this conversation again.
Mm-hmm.
Can you talk about the difference between well-being, feeling good in that way, and pleasure? And because I think, at least in part, the desire for pleasure and mutual pleasure is another aspect of what brings two bodies together.
Yep. Often enough. Unless they've already been taught not to do that. Then they have to practice letting themselves enjoy being for its own sake, rather than some screwy version of getting things right.
Yeah, so maybe where would we start with like where's our introduction to pleasure?
Well, we're born moving into pleasure by being when we're babies. And then we can be, some parents are very encouraging of that, and then it stays that way. And then we get to learn that we don't always like everything that's happening, and we get to practice not liking it. And that's one of the things that kids are very good at, and then parents don't understand why they are choosing to scream and holler.
Yeah, so if I'm someone who, like, I don't think this is me, honestly, but at the same time, I do think it's really important for us as adults to kind of relearn pleasure so that it's free from the cultural constructs, the ways that we've been taught are the ways we should and shouldn't experience pleasure. And to actually experience it from the inside out. So we're not like trying to reenact something that we think will give us pleasure, but if this is making sense. So I'm wondering, is there an exercise for you that comes to mind that's about kind of reawakening this experience, like a very kind of raw experience of pleasure in our experience in our bodies?
Well, first, be a body. If you isolate yourself in your head, for example, which many people in the West are brought up to do, if you let yourself, well, I'm trying to think, the easiest thing really is to notice something that you like and let yourself rest in that and feel the bodily sensations of that. And as you do that, you will be feeling pleasure.
Yeah, it's almost like you're saying, experience what it's like to like something.
Mm-hmm. Let yourself experience what it's like. Let yourself experience that there is something that you like. Some people feel like that's, some people would say, well, that's just a thing, that's just a kid thing. Or, I have to have something that I like to like. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, if we give ourselves, for example, if you will plant some flowers, or if you will plant a tree. I mean, here where I live, I have a house that I thoroughly enjoy living in, and 6 1/3 acres of forest. It would be very difficult for me to feel bad. I'd have to really work at it.
Yeah, so there's something...
And I have cats. Yeah.
Yeah, so there's something to knowing yourself that well, to know what you like and what you don't.
Yeah. And to practice noticing what we like rather more thoroughly than what we don't like. It is important to notice what you don't like. But it's better to notice more often what you do like, so that you don't get stuck in not liking.
Yeah, and that makes me think of your concept of appropriate touch, which is something I'm really curious to hear more about from you. This because it seems like, when I think about the kind of the sexual paradigm that we're all born into, the ways that we learn to experience pleasure with each other. And actually, I don't want to say born into, it's more like this is what our culture has created. And we're seeing a lot of this manifest right now in the Me Too movement and recognition that a lot of people are feeling violated in the name of at least one person's pleasure. Others are feeling super violated and disrespected. And so I'm curious to where this brings a couple so that they can experience each other and awaken pleasure and awaken touch with each other in a way that is appropriate. That's the word that comes to mind for me. And so can you talk a little bit about what that means for you, appropriate touch, and how that enters the picture?
Okay. If I were to talk about it just as me, rather than me in relationship to somebody,
okay,
I would say, it's interesting. I would first ask my body, ask myself as a body, if there was some touching that it would like, that I would like, and whether that would be, for example, to go outside and lean up against one of the trees, or whether it would be asking one of the cats to sit in my lap and purr, or because at the moment there's nobody else living in this house except me. It's just me, only me. One of the things that's very, very helpful, if there are two people that are either confused about how to approach touching each other, or just wanting to be very tender and slow with something, if you sit back to back so that you can feel your heart from behind, and you can feel your heart touching the presence of your partner's heart. That's a very, very helpful thing to do. It's very respectful and it's very tender.
So, okay, I'm going to ask maybe a sort of crass question.
Crass on, sweetheart.
Okay. How do you get from back to back to front to front?
Well, not all at once. Take your time and sit side to side. Sit side to side on the ground so that your thighs are contacting each other, and hold hands. I would say that I think that would be a lovely thing to do. You can also do that lying down, which is nice. If you do that lying down and then reach across and hold each other's hearts. So if I am lying down with my friend Tony, and we're side by side, the whole side of the body touching each other, and I reach across and put my hand on his heart, and he reaches across and puts his hand on my heart. That's a very full embrace, really. And it's easy to maintain for a short time or a longer time without trying to make it sexy. It can easily become sexual if both people are wanting to do that, and if they feel safe to do that, but they don't have to do that.
And what are the the energetics that are going on when this is happening? What are the energetics that are happening, within a body and then between bodies?
Mm-hmm. You mean how is the body expressing its experience of what's happening?
Sure, and I think this also goes in a little bit to your ideas about what is happening energetically, on those more subtle levels as bodies interact with bodies, and hopefully present bodies interacting with present bodies.
Well, if the body is not being present, there will be very little, if any, contact, actually. If you mean by energies, if you mean the sensations that arise in and around the body when it is not staying inside its skin. If it lets itself move beyond its skin, then what you would be experiencing would be some of its energy. Otherwise, the energy is felt as movement and sensation when it's inside the body.
So if I wanted to taste the energy, the beyond the body experience,
Yep.
Yeah, how does one approach that?
First, it would be a question of learning to recognize what the sensations of the energy of being that body, and check it out from one place to another. What does it feel like to be your liver, for example? Bring your attention out of your head into your liver and feel what the sensations of being a liver are. And just go around the whole body and try them out. And then, if you have the background, you can follow the circuitry of that body, which lots of people have been to classes to learn how to do that, and it's not always the case that the teaching includes noticing that those branches of energy movement stop. They do not stop at the skin. So you can follow the I'm trying to think of that. There are many of these ways of that especially the Chinese are very good about teaching people to perceive the movement of these channels, and you can follow them from each of the chakras, and each chakra has more or less numbers of first a location within the body, and then these channels that go out from each of the bodies, each of
the chakras.
Yeah, each of the chakras. Yeah, and you follow them; they will come to the edge of the body, And you don't automatically stop there. You let that channel and the movement of energy through that channel extend beyond the skin. And the more you have practice doing that, the more access you have to feeling your awareness and presence beyond the body. And then not only your own, but others.
Why would someone want to do this?
Well, some people would like to do it because it's fun.
Right, fun and cool, and yeah.
Yep. And it's an exploration for many people. They discover that they can do that, and then they say, "Well, I wonder what goes with that. If I do that, what will I discover?" There are many things that people discover about being a body that are beyond the body.
So that brings me to two questions.
Mm-hmm.
Earlier, you mentioned something depending on our background, and it's funny to me in some ways that I feel like we've done this interview backwards, because typically we would have started here. But I would love for you to give our listeners just a sense of your background. Like, where does all this work come from for you?
Depends on which aspect of it we would like to look at first. I guess the earliest would be that both of my parents were actors, and they were, at least until I was 12, they were frequently preparing for roles. And so I had a lot of support in feeling things and feeling just relaxed about doing things that are a little odd. And that was enhanced when I went to Cal, to the university, because although I started out studying chemistry, I rapidly discovered that what I really wanted to do was to learn to act. So I did that. And after I graduated from the university, I spent a lot of time studying the work of Jung. And I learned a lot from that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think. Around about the same time, I met my first Tibetan teacher. And from that time until just the last few years, that was the main influence on me, was my Tibetans. And most recently, one of them, about a year ago, my closest teacher died. And so I have spent time being aware of him completely without restriction on his presence. So he's been very, very vast, I would say, very vast. And his son, who's still being a buddy, since I don't have any children, and I was trying to think, I want to try and find a way of preserving this house and land for people to practice in and support themselves with.
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to ask my main teacher's son if he would like to have it as a place to come in California when he was moving around a lot. And he, here's a nice thing. I did not, and have not for some time, had his telephone number. So I was saying to myself, well, let's see, Cornelia doesn't have his telephone number, but Philip has his telephone number. I will ask Cornelia if I can have Philip's telephone number so that I can call Philip and ask him if he would give me access to Drukchan's telephone number just long enough for me to ask him this question, and then I would, erase it from my mind. And so as I was formulating that plan in my mind, this Tibetan placed himself in my mind, and it's a very straightforward. That actually feels like a physical happening. So I told him, I was trying to get your phone number to ask you if you'd like to have access to this place as a refuge when I have died. And he said, no, very, very straightforwardly, no, because I want what you do to have its own lineage. I don't want it to be attached to me. I want it to be what you do, and for people to learn from what you do, and not think it's about me. So I said, okay, and that's the plan. I still don't know what I'm going to do with my property. But probably I will live another 10 years, and then maybe I will know.
Perhaps that
will...
Is
that making any sense?
Yeah, and perhaps the answer of what you will do, perhaps that will come to you similarly.
Oh, yeah. I just know that it's not going to be from him.
Right.
It might be his son, his father, who, as I say, is being great space, I would say. It's being great space. So maybe it might come out of great space. That's quite possible.
Hmm. And there's something about the Tibetan lineage, or your teachers that you mention in your books, that their method of instruction is very experiential.
With me, certainly it is.
Mm-hmm.
There are, in the Tibetan culture, there are at least several ways of approaching what they teach that are different parts of adjunct lineages. And this one, that the ones that they hooked me with, my ones, is very. It's not about something in a book. It's about the direct experience of how they are and being influenced by how they are.
So, and
they don't teach everybody that way.
I see. From my perspective, it feels really important, given all the things that we've talked about over this past hour, because so many of them sound so simple as a concept, and yet you don't really get it. You don't really get to experience it until you experience it, until you try and see what it actually does for you, with you.
Yep.
So
that is very true.
And the name of your work you've called Zapchen, and we haven't talked about that at all this entire time. What does Zapchen mean? Why that word?
Well, it is a Tibetan word, and it has a number of meanings. It is often a word that is associated with children in Tibetan. So sometimes it means that they're being playful. Sometimes it means that they're being naughty. And when it applies to grown-ups, let's see. Well, one time I asked one of my secondary Tibetan teachers, what Zapchen, what does it mean really? What does it mean in Tibetan? And he looked a little startled, because actually it turns out it's a naughty word. You wouldn't just go out and say Zapchen, 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 because most Tibetans would not use that word, especially proper women. One time I was having my teacher and his wife and his son were in San Francisco and spending some time. And they were going to be teaching in San Francisco and in Berkeley. So that was very nice. And we were having lunch, and they were speaking Tibetan. I don't know squat all about Tibetan. It's a very difficult language. But in the middle of the conversation, Drukchen, the son, was talking to his mama and used the word Zapchen. And she giggled, and he smiled naughtily himself. And that was the closest I came until I had the opportunity to talk to this Tibetan monk when I was in Nepal. And I said, if it would be okay, would you tell me what Zapchen means? And he smiled and looked a little sheepish. And then he said, well, if I were a married man and I had to go on a trip away so that my wife was at home, and she went to the I don't even know, my brain is draining, to the place where you buy beer, and spent time with another man, that would be Zapchen. So that's the only understanding. It's a complicated word.
So then I gotta ask, why did
ask.
Yes, why did you choose it for your work?
Well, long before the story that I just told you, when I was still living in Australia, I spent time teaching out in the country, and there were some Tibetan monks, but also a high lama who were there, and they found out that the name of what I was doing there was Zapchen, and they laughed about it, and I said, well, what is it about it that's funny? And I still don't know quite the answer to that question, but it was clear that it was a naughty word. I'm trying to think. The very, very, very first time that I decided to use it, I really don't know why. I mean, of course it had to do with my Tibetan teachers, but why did I choose that? No, I don't know. I guess I just liked it.
It's another part of the mystery, I guess.
I guess.
Well, Julie, I so appreciate your time and your wisdom and your offerings today. And your work, as I mentioned, is so fascinating and I think so deceptively simple, at least in terms of what we've talked about. I know it gets deeper and more complex, and you've been doing what you do for decades, and so it would be ludicrous to think that we could distill all of that into an hour-long conversation. But I so appreciate that you've been willing to show up here and give us a starting point for Zapchen.
My pleasure.
In your practices. What is the best way for people to find out more about your work if they're interested in finding out more?
Well, they can call me. Depends really on what they want to know. They can read the books. The books are pretty good.
Yeah, the books are great.
They can find people like out your way. There's a woman in Vermont who teaches not just what she has learned from me, but from part of that. She teaches. There are people in Chicago. There are people in Arizona. And lots of people in Germany and Austria and Australia.
Well,
so I don't know actually what is inherent in your question. You mean
sure.
If they would like to learn more, or?
Yeah. And I think what we can do is we can have some links on in the transcript for this conversation. We can make sure that we have links to your website, and I think that's probably a good starting point for a lot of people. And then I know that if
there are people in Germany who would like to be able to get a copy of the script.
Yes, we will ensure that happens. And for those of you who are listening right now, you can download a copy if you visit neilsattin.com/Julie, Julie, or you can always text the word passion to the number 33444 and follow the instructions. And that way you can download the transcript to this episode. And Julie, I'm wondering if, since probably we have a mix of people who are listening to this, we have people who are just being introduced to you, and I know that your students are going to be excited to hear your voice. And I'm wondering if there's just anything that comes up for you as sort of a final encouragement or offering for everyone who's listening and has been tuning in?
I would say it's a very good grounding. It's a very good starting place. And the people who have worked with me, let's say 10 years or more, become very good teachers and frequently tell me how much they appreciate what they've learned from me and that they can share it with other people in a way that's accessible and helpful, which is nice to hear.
That's great. Yeah. And I was speaking earlier with one of your longtime colleagues and students, Laura Lund, and she mentioned that there are at least probably 500 practitioners worldwide of Zapchen, and then if you include the people that they've taught, probably thousands of people who have been impacted by your work.
That would be nice. That would be nice.
Well, I so appreciate your time again today, and thank you so much for joining us, and maybe we can have you back on one of these days to talk about some more of the finer points, but this definitely feels like an excellent starting place for us in embodying well-being.
Right. I think so. I think it is. And if people are interested enough to try it out, I think they would probably then discover that they have questions that they'd like to pursue. And the books are good for that. Or if they become very interested, they could be in touch with me.
Great, thank you. We will ensure that they have your information through your website in the show guide.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your, yeah.
And now I want to take you out with the full song that was created by an artist on Songfinch named The Boy Jones. He wrote this song, Dance Across the Room, for me and Chloe on our anniversary. So take it away, Boy Jones.
Who were we fooling with that dance we did? That old illusion, two different worlds couldn't mix. To our friends it was obvious. I just wanna watch you dance across the room. I just wanna hold your hand through the thick of it. I just wanna watch you dance across the room. I just wanna hold your hand through the thick of it. And never take you for granted. And if I do, honey, let me have it. I know it ain't how we planned it, but all of you is all I want, I got to have it. And then I watch you with the kids, and I remember what it is. I just wanna watch you dance around the room. I just wanna hold your hand through the thick of it. I just wanna watch you dance across the room. Maybe watch you grow a little bit. All the signs along the way, like the shooting stars and eagle feathers, All those nights I couldn't wait for you to man the jukebox, baby. 'Cause I just wanna watch you dance across the room, and I just wanna hold your hand through the thick of it, and all I wanna do is watch you dance.